Hello friend. Welcome back to Sorry What. Make sure you're comfortable with a cup of your favorite drink and let us begin today's story. He loves me so much I'm sure he'll give this to me. It's not a big deal, Kelly Reed said to her friends as they sat at a local bar drinking mojitos. It will just be for 6 months. That gives us a month to smooth over any rough edges, then we'll be married and together forever. There was a lot of murmuring from the 4 women who were going to be her bridesmaids in 7 months. Wow, babe. That's really pushing it to the edge, you know, even if he loves you as much as any man has ever loved any woman, said a tall blonde named Annie. You're asking him to take a shot to the nuts, then come back smiling. Yeah, Jamie's the best, girl. Why would you want to do him like that? I'd take that man in a heartbeat, said a brunette named Karen. I just feel I need to do this for me before I get married and stay with one man for the rest of my life, Kelly answered. I've only been with one other guy besides Jamie. I think I need to have more experiences, more men before I commit to just one man for the rest of my life. Why? Has Jamie had so many women you feel you need to catch up? Annie queried. Actually, Jamie says he's only had 2 other women besides me. So this would be good for him as well, Kelly voiced. But why did you wait until now? Asked Rosie, a chunky, vivacious redhead. It wouldn't have been that big a deal if you had done this before you 2 got engaged. This looks like you want to jump into a pool filled with shit. Yeah, my timing could have been better, but since we're not married yet I think I deserve this. I think this will make me a better sex partner for Jamie in the future. This has nothing to do with me and Jamie as a couple, Kelly said. A better sex partner? Has Jamie ever complained? The 4th woman, another brunette named Helen, asked. No, but wouldn't every man want a better sex partner? Kelly started to answer before Rosie interrupted. Not if it meant he had to sit on his hands while she was getting that experience with other men, Rosie announced. But he could be getting experience with other women at the same time. He wouldn't be sitting on his hands, Kelly rebutted. Did you ever consider that this could be the beginning of the end for you two? Helen asked. I've thought about it, but have you ever seen someone more in love than Jamie is? I'll be surprised if he doesn't cry in relief when I tell him that it's just for 6 months, and we'll get back together in time to get married, Kelly said. Well, if I get a vote, I'm voting that you not do it, Annie said. I don't see anything good coming out of this for Jamie. God, I'd kill for a great guy like Jamie. You all know that all of the guys I've dated couldn't add up to one Jamie. The 4 other women at the table all nodded in agreement at Annie's statement. So when are you ruining his world? Helen asked. I was thinking that tonight is the night, Kelly said. It's Tuesday, so this way he'd have 3 days before my first date. Wait. You've already got a date lined up for Friday night? Rosie queried. Well, nobody specific, but hope springs eternal, you know. Aren't we doing girls' night out this Friday? Kelly asked. Jamie Breyer walked into the home he shared with his fiancée that night and smelled his favorite meal cooking. Pot roast with roasted potatoes. For at least the 1000th time, he thought to himself that he was the luckiest man to walk the face of the earth. Jamie and Kelly had been together for more than 4 wonderful years. They had met as freshmen at Michigan State University and were an item right from the start. He was enamored that the 5'6" blonde could be as sweet on the inside as she was beautiful and curvaceous on the outside. She was taken with his boyish good looks, curly dark brown hair, athletic body and a strong quiet confidence she hadn't found in anyone else his age. They both thought their love was storybook. Love at first sight and apparently getting stronger by the day. He had asked her to marry him on their graduation day. She didn't hesitate to say yes. Kelly had been with only one other boy besides Jamie. He had been with only 2 other girls besides Kelly. Their lack of sexual experience became a bond of sorts as they experimented, learned and laughed together, starting on their 6th date. They read books about sex together and spent literally hours trying different positions. Everything they did together was an adventure of epic proportions. Kelly was sitting in the living room drinking a glass of wine when Jamie found her. She looked nervous, Jamie thought, as he went to her for a usual hello kiss, before going upstairs to change into casual clothing. He noted that Kelly was still in her work clothes, something unusual for her once she got home. Jamie, babe, why don't you get a drink and join me back here before you go change? I've got something I need to tell you, Kelly said. Jamie saw the serious look on Kelly's face, and did as his fiancée bade him. He assumed something bad had happened during Kelly's day at Transglobal Shipping. Jamie sat at the other end of the sofa from Kelly. He took a sip of his Jameson's Black Barrel Irish whiskey, and not for the first time wondered how the Jameson people could make their whiskey so smooth. He stared at his fiancée as she shifted in her place. Jamie, I have something important to tell you, and I need you to listen carefully before you ask me any questions. Okay, Kelly said. Jamie nodded silently. He was too concerned to speak, wondering if his fiancée was ill. Kelly dropped what amounted to a nuclear bomb on Jamie's life. Several times he went to speak, but she held up her hand in a stop motion. "You promised," she declared. "If I don't get this out all at once, I'll never finish." Jamie's forehead was furrowed as he listened. His heart was breaking more with every sentence the woman spoke. When she finished, she nodded at Jamie. "I thought you loved me," he whispered. "How could I have been so wrong?" Both had tears in their eyes, Kelly because she knew how much she was hurting her fiancé. "You're not wrong. I love you more than anything," she cried. "This is something I just need to do for me. I know it seems selfish, but if I don't do this, I'll wonder forever about what I missed, and it might pull us apart in the future. But the same rules that apply to me also apply to you. You haven't been with very many women. This will give you a chance to expand your horizons and knowledge as well. We would both be better partners for each other in the future." "I don't need a better partner for the future. I love you just the way you are," Jamie said. "And I don't want to expand my horizons and knowledge without you. Is that what you want from me?" Jamie was experiencing a mix of anger, sadness and confusion. He felt that the person in the world he most treasured and trusted had ambushed him. "Let me get this straight. See if I follow you, you want both of us to be able to date and have sex with other people for the next 6 months. Then we'll come together again, get married and live happily ever after. Is that what you want? Seriously?" he questioned. "Yes. Exactly," she answered brightly, pleased that Jamie seemed to understand what she proposed. "And what if I say no to this cocky proposal of yours?" Jamie responded. "I am not good with this. I won't share you with other men." Kelly's face went from smiling to frowning in a millisecond. "It wouldn't be like sharing. You'd have your dates and I'd have mine. They wouldn't have to involve sex, but they could. After all, that's how we both get more experience," she said. "And this way, you could be trying out my replacement," Jamie said quietly, looking directly at Kelly. No. I'm not looking to replace you, Jamie. I love you. I want to marry you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you," she claimed. "You say you love me, but you want to rip my heart out of my chest and have sex with a bunch of other men before we get married. That doesn't sound like love to me. That sounds like lust." "Lust. The same 4 letters in lust are also in the word slut," Jamie said. "I am not a slut. I'm not going to be a slut," Kelly insisted. I don't believe you," Jamie said. "I don't believe anything you say anymore. Was this your Looney Tunes idea, or did it come from one of your friends? I thought they liked me," he added. "They do like you. This wasn't from any of them. This is all my idea. I just think I need to have more than 2 men for my entire life, so 10 years down the road, I'm not wondering and thinking I need to step out on you to find out," Kelly said. "I'm willing to have only 3 women for my entire life, as long as you're the one I end up with," Jamie started. "That's just it," Kelly interrupted. "You would end up with me. After 6 months, we would come back together. I promise." "Like I trust your promises now," he said. "I'm still the same me you've been loving for more than 4 years. I'll be the same me when this is over," she said, tears coming to her eyes. "Why can't you see that?" "No, you won't be. The minute you spread your legs for another man, you won't be the same, not in my eyes. Never again," Jamie said, a sad look coming over his face. "Hell, you're not the same in my eyes right now, just for telling me what you intend to do." Kelly was stunned with this turn of events. Jamie had made it quite clear that he was not going along with Kelly's plan. She would have bet hell, she was betting that her sweet, loving fiancé would give her this. Yes, she knew he wouldn't necessarily be happy, but he loved her beyond reason. This would work out. She held that view for about a half hour, until she saw Jamie coming out of the bedroom with 2 suitcases. She was sitting at the kitchen table, picking at her food when she saw him. "Wait, where are you going?" she whined as she jumped up from her spot. "I'm gone. We're done, babe. I would have killed for you up until a little while ago. Now it's taking all my self-restraint not to kill you," Jamie said. "You can't go. We're getting married in 7 months," Kelly shrieked. "That's past tense now, Cal," Jamie said quietly. "Not going to be any wedding. No longer on us to be married. Apartments paid up through the end of the month. Get yourself a roommate, keep it yourself, whatever. I'll figure something out for myself. Now you're free to have sex with whomever you want, as many womovers as you want." "No. This isn't supposed to go this way. Don't you love me?" Kelly cried. "If you love me, you should give this to me." Jamie looked sadly at his ex-fiancée. Where was she getting this drivel, he asked himself. "We were supposed to be a team, you and me. If you loved as much as you claim you do, you would never have made your little speech," Jamie said. Jamie could almost see the wheels turning in Kelly's head. The color had drained from her face. I guess we don't need to try other people. She backpedaled as tears started falling from her eyes. It was a stupid idea. I'm sorry. It was a stupid idea, and I am sure you are sorry now. But you can't unbreak my heart. You want what you want, and if you don't do it now, you'll do it when we're married, and do it behind my back, Jamie said. At least by telling me now, we can end it before we're married, before it gets costly. Oh my god. Daddy's going to kill us. He's already out a bunch of money, and I don't know how much of it is refundable, Kelly said. Not my problem. That's on Daddy's little girl, Jamie grumbled, making air quotes with his fingers. Please don't do this, Jamie, Kelly begged. Tell me you didn't have a plan B. What on God's green earth ever gave you the idea that I would let you duck half the male population of this city, and then marry you? Not half the male population, Kelly interjected. Just a few guys here and there. That makes it so much better. How many do you already have lined up? Jamie asked. None. I haven't done anything yet. I wouldn't do anything before I told you. What do you think I am? Kelly questioned. Jamie looked at the woman with raised eyebrows. Do you really expect me to answer that? He asked back. Tears poured out of Kelly's eyes as Jamie took his suitcases to his car and then came back to the apartment. I'll get whatever I left sometime in the next few days, he said. Have a nice life. Please don't do this. I haven't done anything. I've never cheated on you. I won't. I promise, the woman sobbed. Jamie hesitated for several seconds. He felt his stomach roiling. God, he had loved that woman. Now he couldn't get away from her fast enough. Jamie had made plans to stay several days with his cousin Sam, who lived about 15 minutes away from his apartment. Once he got settled in with his cousin, he got on his laptop and updated the 2 social media sites on which Kelly had set up wedding pages. Dear friends, he wrote. The wedding between Kelly Reid and Jamie Breyer has been cancelled due to Kelly's expressed desire to experience sex with men who are not her fiancé. For more information, feel free to contact Kelly. The note was short and to the point, and put the blame squarely on Kelly. Jamie didn't feel the need to be gentle on his ex-fiancée. He reread the note several times before he posted it, then made sure to change the password to lock out Kelly. He repeated the process on the second site, then shut down his computer. Even though he told people to contact his ex-fiancée, he knew his phone would start blowing up quickly, even though it was now midnight. It took 4 minutes for the first call to come in, and it was from a friend of Jamie's. He ignored it and the several that came in quickly after. The 4th call was from Kelly. He ignored it too, and a minute later got a text from her asking why he did what he did. I'm not taking shit from anybody for the clusterfuck you created. I didn't trust you to tell the truth. Don't contact me anymore. Have a nice life, he responded back before turning off his phone. Kelly sobbed at the kitchen table for several long minutes after Jamie left before she called Rosie, her closest friend in the city. Rosie could barely understand her friend through the sobbing, but she knew what the sobbing was about. She called the other 3 women who were supposed to be bridesmaids at Kelly's upcoming wedding, and the 4 were at the apartment that used to be occupied by Jamie and Kelly within 30 minutes. So we can assume that you completely misread Jamie, and he walked out, Karen said as the woman drank wine in the living room. How can we help? I'm not sure you can, Kelly said. Not only did he leave, but he cancelled the wedding. Said he couldn't trust me anymore. I never thought he'd just walk away without even talking to me. Said we were done the minute I told him my plan. I told him I changed my mind, but he said it was too late already. I thought he loved me. I guess I was wrong, Kelly said. No, you weren't wrong, but you hurt him about as badly as you could. Some men are all or nothing kinds of guys, Annie said. Or he didn't love you nearly as much as you thought, Helen said. What's that old saying, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back, it was yours. If not, it never was. I'm saying it never was. Rosie and Karen nodded in agreement. Annie grimaced. What? Rosie asked. We all know Jamie's a good guy. Let's face it, we all knew this could have gone wrong 7 ways from Sunday, Annie said. Yeah, I'm not sure I could have handled something like that if the shoe was on the other foot, Helen said. The women continued to talk, drink and provide support for Kelly. Just after midnight, her cell phone rang. She had hoped it was Jamie calling, but it was another friend who wanted to know what was going on with the wedding being cancelled. Kelly was astounded that somebody else already knew about the cancellation. Damn. I am so screwed. She yelled as she hit a saved number on her phone. The person she was calling didn't answer. She typed out a message and got a quick return. She gasped when she read the message. She showed it to the others, who also gasped. It's probably a good thing it's so late. My parents are asleep by now, or else they would be calling. My dad will have a heart attack when he finds out about this, Kelly said. Kelly was awakened by her phone ringing incessantly. It would ring until the message picked up, then it would ring again. Even in her sleep-deprived and slightly hungover state, she knew without looking at the phone who was on the other end of the line. "Hi, Daddy," she said meekly when she finally picked up. The next 10 minutes were among the most unpleasant of the young woman's life. Her father found out from a friend telling him about the messages Jamie had put on the wedding sites. He went to both sites to see for himself before he called his daughter. "Are you out of your ducking mind? Who announces to their fiancé that they want to be a slut before they get married?" Her father yelled at her. "Even without announcing it, who would do such thing? You've got to be ducking kidding me." "It wasn't quite like that, Daddy," Kelly said, not elaborating while her father hyperventilated on the other end. "No? Then tell me what it was exactly like," he growled. Okay, it was exactly like that," she rasped. "Talk to her, Kathleen. Talk to her before I reach through the phone and strangle the life out of her." Kelly heard her father hand the phone to her mother. "Oh, baby, what the hell were you thinking?" her mother said, the disappointment in her voice practically dripping through the phone line. "We love Jamie. We thought you did too." "I did, Mom. I love him. I do. But I need to experience more of life, more men, before I get tied down forever to just one man," Kelly said. "Couldn't you have done this before you agreed to be his wife? Some men like your father and apparently Jamie think that once you agree to marry them, that means you are exclusive with them forever. Crazy them, huh?" her mother said. "You screwed up huge, baby. I'm not sure you'll be able to get him back. Damn shame. We really liked him. You cost your mother and me a bunch of money, and I can't even be mad at him," her father said after taking back the phone. "He's not the dumbest here. Damn, girl." Her father sighed and ended the call. Since she was awake, Kelly tried calling Jamie. When she didn't get an answer, she left him a text asking if she could talk to him. She then looked through the dozens of messages she had gotten since last night. "Duck," she whispered aloud to no one. After a restless night of sleep, Jamie showered and went to work. He figured getting buried in work would take his mind off his current problems. When he took his coffee break, he turned his phone back on and found about 50 messages. He ignored all but the one from his parents. The call came from his father's phone, but he knew his dad would take his call at his office. He made the call and spent the next few minutes giving his father the rundown of what happened the day before. "Are you sure that you want to end it this way?" he asked his son earnestly. "It seems pretty cut and dried the way you've done it. No second chances. No negotiating. Done. Just like that. I could never trust her again, Dad. I'd always be waiting for her to want to do it again once we were married, or wondering if she was cheating on me anytime she was out of my sight," Jamie said. "I totally understand, son. Your mother and I will not be giving you the please take her back speech," she said. "We're always here if you need something. You know that." Kelly's close friends Rosie, Helen and Karen practically dragged her out on the town the week after Jamie left her. "You wanted more dick, girl. You can't do that crying by yourself in your sad apartment," Rosie encouraged. The four laughed, drank and danced all night. Although she wasn't planning on starting to sample men on this night, as the evening wore on and the alcohol took control, Kelly found herself grinding up against her dance partners. One in particular realized that the hot blonde seemed to be ready to go home with somebody, and he made sure that he was around when that time came. They say that the brain is the ultimate sexual organ, and Kelly was more than ready to enjoy her first new man in more than 4 years, and only the third of her life. She was a bit hungover and confused about where she was when she woke up the next morning in a strange bed with a man who was not Jamie. He was handsome, though, and as she lay there, she remembered back to the great sex the two had shared. She leaned into the sleeping man and laid a tender kiss on his lips, watching his eyes open. He smiled brightly and kissed her back passionately while running his hand down to her peach. 2 minutes later she was bouncing up and down on his heart clock with the fervor of a well-paid hooker. It was only as she felt him finish inside her did she realize that the man was not wearing a condom. After laying together cuddling for several minutes, the two got into the shower together and cleaned up. The man, what the hell was his name, she kept wondering, fixed them toast and coffee before he drove her home. That was some night. "I'd love to do that again," the man said when he stopped his car in the apartment complex parking lot. "Yeah, me too," she said shyly. "Put your numbers in my phone, baby." The two then kissed. It wasn't a quick peck on the lips, but it also wasn't as passionate as it had been the night previous or earlier that morning. It was a lover's kiss, and Kelly smiled brightly when she thought of that. This was exactly what she was missing in the years she was exclusive with Jamie. Duck him, if he didn't want to play it her way, she thought. Pretty women like her didn't have to play by someone else's rules. 2 weeks later, Kelly let another handsome man pick her up and take her home. She again enjoyed the night. When her date brought her home the next morning, she invited him into her apartment. The pair wound up in Kelly's bed, where her partner ducked her into the mattress before leaving. Kelly had sex with 3 different men in the first month after splitting from Jamie. As she had told her friends at lunch during the week, she was enjoying her newfound freedom. What she didn't tell her friends was that she missed having a connection to the men with whom she was having sex. Jamie didn't jump back into the dating pool for several months. It wasn't something he was familiar with, as he had been with Kelly for more than 4 years. His 2 best friends from the company he worked at took him out several times after work on Friday nights. "You had a fiancé, for God's sakes. I thought you had some game," John Wheeler said to Jamie one Friday night. "You've got to forget about looking for Miss Right when we're trolling, and look for Miss Right now. The Miss Right stuff is for dating." "Thanks for the advice, Dad. I'll try to remember that," Jamie responded. 2 hours later, Jamie was sitting alone at the bar of a fairly upscale hotel restaurant, drinking a double shot of Angel's Envy rye. The bar was mostly empty, so Jamie was surprised when a pretty radiated woman in a fairly sexy yellow sundress sat down in the seat next to him. Jamie turned sideways and appraised the woman blatantly, while she ordered a glass of red wine. He found himself somewhat attracted to the woman. "Like what you see, young man?" the woman queried as she turned to face him after being served her wine. Jamie couldn't help himself as he took a good look at the woman's ample chest and her half-unbuttoned top. He smiled self-consciously. He was not expecting her to reach her hand out and place it gently on his cheek. "You look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. Care to talk about it?" she asked with more than a hint of cheekiness. Jamie again looked at the woman's chest and smiled. She purposely took a breath in, then let it out, watching as Jamie looked on, transfixed. "I suppose I should be thankful that I can still interest a man young enough to be my son," she said, shifting in her seat and pulling down the hem of her dress slightly as Jamie watched. Jamie told the woman, Naomi Ballinger, his entire tale of woe as they sat, drank and split an appetizer. The woman proved to be an excellent listener, occasionally asking a question for clarification, and didn't seem to have any problem with Jamie taking an occasional visual examination of her breasts. She noticed his bright smile every time he did so, and she had to admit to herself, she enjoyed the young man's attention to her body. It was a little before midnight when Jamie went to say goodnight to the woman. She surprised him a second time when she leaned into his personal space and planted a soft kiss on his lips. "I would very much like it if you would come upstairs to my room and spend the night," she said. "Yeah, you know you had me the first time you breathed," Jamie said. The woman giggled lyrically. Jamie paid both of their tabs, then took her outstretched hand and walked with her to the hotel elevator. Naomi looked at his young face and licked her lips. She saw the look in his eyes and just knew. "You've never done this before, have you? Taken a woman upstairs to her hotel room?" the woman asked. "This is a first for me," he whispered as he colored. "Then I make sure your first is your best," she whispered back. Jamie was all smiles the next morning when he woke up with Naomi wrapped in his arms. Her hair was a mess, her makeup was gone, and he thought she was even better looking than when he met her in the bar the night before. He stared at her for several minutes until she opened her eyes sleepily. "Oh God, I must look like hell. When was the last time you woke up to a 46-year-old woman?" "If I had to guess, probably never," she said softly. Jamie leaned into the woman and gave her a searing kiss. "If this is hell, sign me up," he said happily. "You look wonderful." "If I was 20 years younger, you'd never get rid of me," Naomi said. "You are a catch, young man. Don't change for any woman. They should change for you." The two showered together, with Jamie very careful to make sure all the woman's internal parts were extra clean. When a handsome, young electronic components quality control officer left her room, she was sated and nearly exhausted. She had Jamie's phone number and promised to call if she ever got back to town. Annie Leonard also had Jamie's phone number, but he hadn't answered any calls or texts from Kelly or any of her close friends, since he split from his former fiancée. More so than the rest, the tall, lithe woman was desperate to speak with him. She had no idea where he had moved to either, so in desperation she showed up at his company's office about 4 months after the split. Jamie was surprised and angry to see Annie waiting at the reception desk when he was called down with the announcement he had a visitor. Jamie had given his company's receptionist a list of names of people whose calls were not to be allowed through, but he never thought Kelly or any of her friends would have the temerity to actually show up at his place of business. "What the hell are you doing, bothering me where I work, Annie? I won't put up with this," he started to say. "Trust me, it's not what you think," the blonde woman interjected. "Can we go somewhere private and talk?" His face softened a bit and he told the receptionist that he and his guests were going to the diner down the street for a few minutes. He motioned her to the front door, and they quickly and silently walked to the diner a few minutes away. Jimmy had always marveled at the fact that a woman as pretty as Kelly had a cadre of pretty friends. He jokingly called the five the coven of cute. Annie was a tall blonde with an athletic body and a great personality, Jimmy thought. He thought she was the most down-to-earth of the group. "What the duck is so important that you'd interrupt my workday, Annie?" he asked harshly after the waitress had taken their coffee order and moved off. "I'm not going to change my mind." Kelly's toast. "I'm not asking you to change your mind," she answered. "You probably haven't listened to any of the messages I've left you, but I think you're right and she's wrong. It was an awfully shitty thing she did to you. That's why I called it first. But now I'm calling for a different reason. Would you consider dating me?" Jimmy's head came up like someone jerked on his hair. He looked directly into Annie's green eyes and saw nothing but hope. "You're serious, aren't you?" he asked quietly. "Absolutely serious. I've always thought you were a great guy, and since neither one of us is dating anyone at the moment, I kind of thought, well, maybe," she said. The woman's breathing was erratic. Her face was flushed. Perhaps if he hadn't been engaged to one of Annie's closest friends, he might have said yes, Jamie thought to himself. This just felt wrong, even though he had been told by several friends that Kelly in recent weeks had dated several of his closest friends' ex-friends. "I can't, Annie. I just can't. It's not right, even though Kelly and I are no longer engaged," Jamie said. "You do know that she's," Annie started to say. "Yeah, I know way more than I want to about Kelly and her adventures, but that's her. I'm not going there, though." "I'm sorry, Annie," Jamie said. "Me too, more than you know," Annie said. "Can we at least go back to being friends again? You know, I call you occasionally and you answer. And you call me occasionally. As long as this doesn't turn into a Kelly thing. You don't tell me anything about her, and don't tell her anything about me." "Got it," Jamie commented. "I'd really like it that way. I don't need to be in the middle," she said. For one of the few times since she started on her journey to get more decks inside her, as Rosie came to call it, Kelly came away unsatisfied from a coupling. She knew she should have stuck to her personal policy of not boinking the boss. Fred Waring, Kelly's immediate supervisor at the global telecommunications firm she worked at, was a dashing and charismatic man in his early 50s. He had been hitting on Kelly almost from the time she began working in the office. She had been gently rebuffing the man, citing her engagement when that was a reality, and telling him she wasn't ready after that. Apparently, she was finally ready after the firm's 4th of July barbecue. One of the things working in Fred Waring's favor was the fact that Kelly hadn't gotten laid in more than a week. When she lived with Jamie, the two were going at it almost every day, often several times a day. When Jamie left, she was getting it once or twice a week once she got started, but her date this past weekend had to cancel due to illness, and by the time the barbecue rolled around, Kelly's kitty was practically suffering from withdrawal. So when Fred started flirting, she gave in. Another advantage in Fred's favor was the fact he was married. If she was going to get involved with a boss, him being married gave her a way out when she wanted to end the proceedings, she felt. The two wound up back at Kelly's apartment. Within a few minutes, Fred had the woman on all fours. Kelly, hardly the inexperienced woman she had been several months before, was not exactly enamored with what she felt was almost no foreplay and little technique. She finally was able to work hard enough to get her own mile dough, but she was very pleased when Fred came after only 15 minutes. She was even more pleased, although she tried to act sad, when he told her he was only good for one go a night. A month later, Kelly and her 4 closest friends were out celebrating her non-wedding day, the day she was originally to have been married to Jamie. She and Rosie organized the evening, which was starting in a bar she and Jamie used to frequent occasionally. All 4 of Kelly's friends were acutely aware of what the woman had sacrificed to have an elevated number of sexual partners before getting married. 3 of the 4 had at least partially supported her decision, even though they had misgivings about her giving up a man they all thought was practically perfect. Now, 7 months later, Kelly had upped her number of partners from 2 to 2 dozen, and if nothing else, her friends would have to admit her personal confidence was sky high. Rosie had moved in with Kelly about a month after Jamie left, so Kelly no longer was by herself in the apartment. Her sexual successes had her confidence soaring to the point that not only did she not often think about Jamie anymore, but when she did, she usually thought of him as the villain in this story. The women appeared to be having a great time, occasionally breaking into bouts of raucous laughter. The 5 women at the table across the bar were loud enough for everybody to hear them, including a man who was celebrating the same exact day, although obviously for a different reason. Although he had asked his friends not to keep him informed about Kelly's activities, he still knew way too much. He knew of at least 6 friends, now former friends, that she had ducked, among the more than a dozen duck biddies. If he knew about that amount, he was sure there were a lot more that he didn't know about. He drank his Glenmorangie single malt quietly, reveling in the flavor. He smiled inwardly, thankful at least that she had expressed this desire to be his slut before the two were married, rather than after. You've got to take your positives where you can get them, he thought. 2 nights later, Jamie got a call from Annie. I saw you at Lachlan's the other night, she said. I didn't go over to you because I didn't want the rest of them to know you were there. I wasn't trying to be a snob. I figured you probably didn't want them to know that you were celebrating as well. I definitely wasn't having as much fun as you ladies, Jamie said. Were you celebrating our wedding day or yet another notch on Cully's bedpost? If you were anybody else, I'd say that I was hearing sour grapes. But from what we've both seen, I'd have to say you were on the money. I've never seen anyone go from practically virgin to Kardashian one up that quick, Annie asserted. But in this instance, we were celebrating the wedding that never was. You know, she's still pissed at you for not sanctioning her renaissance, I guess would be the nicest way to put it. Jamie chuckled. Renaissance. That's a good one, Annie, he said. So, did you call just to say, hey, or is there something I can do for you? I might need a favor, Jamie, she said somewhat hesitantly. No, I'm not getting back together with Kelly, Jamie said with a chuckle. No, I said favor, not cataclysmic event, Annie said. Okay, what's the favor then? He asked. There's a family wedding coming up and my cousin Brooke needs a date, a +1. I thought you'd be perfect for the role. You're handsome, you can hold a decent conversation, and you can eat food without drooling, she said. Damn, I sound like a perfect catch, Jamie said. So what's cuz like? About 5'5", blonde hair, blue eyes, kind of a bookworm. She's got a great personality, too, Annie said. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The old great personality ruse. Really? Jamie whined. Seriously. She's really great. You're going to love her, Annie enthused. Jamie sighed heavily. He knew he'd been suckered. Okay. You got me. When and where? Jamie asked. Jamie's eyeballs almost fell out of his head when he met Brooke at Annie's house a month later prior to heading to the wedding. And she's got a great personality? Jamie asked through his smile. Oh yeah. I wouldn't lie to you, Annie enthused. In actuality, Annie didn't lie to Jamie. Brooke had a great personality, in addition to being a seriously hot blonde woman with bright blue eyes, thick, kissable lips and a curvaceous body. It took all of Jamie's willpower not to drool during the evening. Hey, show some cool, Jamie. Has it been that long for you? Annie giggled at one point during the evening. No, but I was expecting a great personality, Jamie said. You owe me, Jamie. You owe me. Yes, I do, he agreed. Brooke Martin was a 26-year-old junior accountant who until a few months ago had been in an exclusive relationship with a man she thought might have been the one, until he got drunk at a party and hit the woman several times afterward. End of relationship. The bruises went away, but Brooke became wary of men and relationships. She had only been on a couple of dates since the incident. She wasn't sure of going to the wedding with a blind date, but she had confidence that her cousin would find her a nice guy, the male equivalent of a great personality. She was more than a little surprised when the handsome, fit Jamie showed up. Could it have been mere coincidence, or was it bad karma, Jamie wondered, when Cully showed up at his table at a Starbucks several months later. He was out running errands and had stopped at the cafe to get a salted caramel latte and a bagel. While he usually drank black coffee, Cully had introduced him to the latte when they were together, and he occasionally had one when the mood struck him. Hey, stranger, mind if an old friend sits with you? Cully asked. He knew it was petty, but Jamie looked around and behind the woman, then back at her. Aren't you the funny one? She said sarcastically. Can I sit? He pointed to the chair, giving her tacit permission, while he chewed a mouthful of bagel. He looked her over, noting that she was still every bit as beautiful as when they were together. She caught him looking and smiled inwardly. That was a good sign, she thought. The two sat in silence until Jamie was finished chewing. You look great, Kelly. How are you doing? Jamie asked. Been better, but you know that, the woman said, trying not to sound too bitter. She looked down for a second to regain her composure. Then she looked directly into Jamie's eyes. Been dating anyone seriously? She asked. Kelly watched as Jamie's eyes flickered. He was wondering how much to tell her, deciding upon a version of the truth. Been dating a woman pretty regularly for the last couple of months. She's got a great personality, he said, knowing immediately what Kelly would think. How many are you dating? He queried, the words just escaping his lips before he realized what he had asked. The woman flinched. She knew she deserved that, but she hadn't expected Jamie to be so blunt. I'm not dating anyone seriously right now, she responded. Jamie responded, having taken another bite of his bagel. Kelly was surprised she couldn't read the expression in Jamie's eyes. Once upon a time, he was an open book to her. You know, I've had more than enough time to get the experience I felt I needed. I would think that if we got back together, we could be just as good as we used to be, she said. I'm glad you got that experience that you felt you needed, Jamie said. I never wanted to hold you back. I too got some experience during that time, although I definitely didn't want it, and I'm still not sure I needed it. Why can't we try again, Jamie? We were so good together, Kelly said. We were really good together, Kel. That's what hurt so much, Jamie said. I loved you with every ounce of my being, but you didn't love me the same way. I didn't need to have sex with other women before we married to be satisfied. But you were quite vocal that you needed something more than me before you could be satisfied enough to settle down. Okay, I ducked up, she admitted, but I'm past that now. We were good. We could get back there again. It was Jamie's turn to flinch. If half of everything he'd heard about Kelly's sexual behavior since they split was true, he doubted she could ever again be faithful to just one man. There was also the specter of the unspecified venereal disease for which she was still being treated, he knew. No, we can't, Jamie said. You cut my heart out, then stomped on it. There's no way I could ever forget that. If I can't forget, I'd never be able to forgive. Never. The woman's eyes misted up before she shook her head to clear them. Well, you lost, she said blithely. If you ever change your mind, I'm still at the same number. Annie was a beautiful bride at her wedding 2 years later. Her 4 best friends were her bridesmaids. The reception for about 200 people was just getting rolling when Kelly spotted Jamie sitting at a table with a beautiful blonde woman. What's he doing here? She asked Annie. Annie followed Kelly's eyes to Jamie. She smiled brightly, and yet awkwardly as well. I'm still friends with him, Kel, she answered. Just because you threw him away, didn't mean I threw him away. Besides, he's married to my cousin Brooke. Has been for over a year. How did I miss that? Kelly asked. Annie smiled and leaned over to her freshly minted husband, Greg, and gave him a sensual kiss. The two moved off to the front of the hall as the best man started speaking. Did you know Jamie had gotten married? Kelly asked the other 3 bridesmaids. They all shook their heads negatively. Not any of our concern, Karen said. Besides, why do you care anymore? You've had more sex since you split with him than the rest of us combined. You've obviously moved on and on and on. Rosie and Helen both giggled and rolled their eyes. They moved off with their dates. An hour later, Kelly looked up from her seat at the bride's table to see Jamie and his wife standing in front of her. Kelly, I'd like to introduce you to my wife Brooke. Brooke, an old friend to be accurate, a former fiance, Kelly Reed, Jamie said. She's the one. Kelly's mouth dropped open as she scanned a beautiful woman in the tight, short, expensive blue dress, with diamonds dripping off her ring finger, her neck and her earlobes. Jamie, too, looked impeccable in his expensive dark blue pinstripe suit, and his smile looked relaxed and sincere, she noted. Without trying to seem flip, I guess I owe you my thanks, Brooke said. Well, you and my cousin. When she said she was going to fix me up with a nice guy, I thought, great. And then this man showed up at my door. Kelly thought briefly of reaching out to smack the smug woman standing in front of her. Then realized that what she considered smug was the self-confidence of having made the right decision in her choice of her spouse. Upon further reflection, Kelly realized that her selfish decision to make her kitty happy had changed the course of her life, and not for the better. I'd like to say you're welcome, but honestly, I can't. I screwed up badly and took a good man's love for granted. I might have loved him, but apparently I love myself more. That's it for today. If you enjoyed today's story, drop a like and comment before you leave. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any video. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you soon for our next story.